Okay. To, Today is going to be a recapitulation of what we have learned in Daniel chapter 1. Okay? It's the same story from Daniel chapter 1. And last week I told the little children to learn and come. How many of you learned? Very good. Anybody else? No. Okay, so we'll just revise through this story because this is an important story. If you don't know where they have come from and who these people were, you will not be able to understand through the rest of the story. Okay, so we will just go through the important points, and then after that we will go through a questionnaire if there is time. Otherwise, I'll give it to you and you can answer them and return it to me by the end of the message. Okay? Now, we learned previously that this story happened during the time of King Jehoiakim in Judah. And who was there in Babylon? Very good. Nebuchadnezzar. So this was between two kings, King Jehoiakim, who was the king of Judah, and Nebuchadnezzar, who was the king of Babylon. Okay? And who won the war? Nebuchadnezzar won the war. Okay? Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, won the war. Against who? King Jehoiakim, who was the king of Judah. Okay? Now, King Nebuchadnezzar had ordered his people to bring young people from the family of King Jehoiakim. Okay? He wanted young people from the king's family, the royal family, to be brought to the kingdom of Babylon. Why? Because he wanted to train these young men to work for him in his palace. Okay? He wanted the young people to work for him in the palace. And so he appointed a person named Ashpenaz, who was the leader for the eunuchs. Okay? And so he asked him to take control of these young men. And what were they supposed to do to these young men? They were supposed to teach them science. They were supposed to teach them literature. Some of the words you have to remember, okay? Because your puzzle has space where you have to mention these words, okay? So they were supposed to learn science. They were supposed to learn the language. They were supposed to learn the Chaldean literature. What do they have to learn? Literature, science, language, literature of Chaldeans. They had to learn. Now, these people were also supposed to be fed by the king's food. Okay? They were supposed to eat the meat and drink the wine that was given to the king. And these people also were served the same food. So the king ordered that 3 years these young men were supposed to eat the king's food, become healthy, and become wise, and become strong, so that by the end of 3 years they will be capable to take the responsibilities that the king wants to give them. Okay? And so when these young men, among the young men, there were 4 of them whose names are mentioned in the Bible. Can you tell me the names? Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, Azariah. Okay, these were the 4 men who came, 4 men among the men who came from Judah. Okay, and these men's names were changed to Belteshazzar, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Okay, you must remember these names. Okay. Now, after changing their names, they were supposed to eat king's food and they were supposed to be in the palace. And so Daniel comes forward and he says, I don't want to defile my body with king's meat or the wine. I want to have simple food that contains pulses and vegetables. And we will be satisfied with that food. And so when he expressed this to Ashpenaz, he ordered another person whose name was Melzar. What's his name? Melzar. And he told him to take care of these men. And Daniel said, no, we don't want this king's food. But these chief and Melzar, they were afraid. Why? Because by the end of 3 years, if these men look worse than what the other men are, then what will the king ask? Did you feed them? Did you do this? Did you do that? King will ask a lot of questions, isn't it? So the chief didn't want to give them pulses and vegetables. They wanted only king's food to be given to them. But then these people said, no, we don't want it. But you give us how many days? 10 days of just pulses, vegetables and fruits. And you test us by the end of 10 days, and then you can decide what you want to do. Okay, so these people agreed. Because it's only 10 days, not the 3 years, right? It's only 10 days. And so 10 days they fed these people with pulses, vegetables and fruits, and by the end of 10 days, these people looked much brighter, fatter, stronger, and they were quite wise. They were brilliant. And so they said, okay, now that you have requested that you want only pulses, vegetables and fruits, we will feed you with that, and by the end of 3 years, you have to go in front of King Nebuchadnezzar. And so just like how they said, that after end of 3 years, they went to King Nebuchadnezzar. And King Nebuchadnezzar looked at all the people. There were many people who were fed with king's food except these 4 men. But when he looked at these young men and he tested their intelligence, tested their strength, he found that these 4 men, what were their names? His name was changed to Belteshazzar. Shadrach, Meshach and Abednego. These 4 men, they looked much brighter, stronger, intelligent, and they were answering all questions, and they were much better than, here another word, magicians. The magicians here and the astrologers, they were better than them. And so the king was well satisfied, and he gave them responsibilities. And there is another point that is given in the last verse of chapter 1. It says, Daniel was there in the palace up to the first year of King Cyrus. Okay, now let's recapitulate this. Go back to Daniel chapter 1, read through it once again, and we will remember all these points, and then I'll give you the puzzles now. You write it down, and by the end of the meeting, Uncle's message, you can give me back the papers with the answers. Okay, and whoever gets all right will get something next week. Okay.